Today I want to talk with you about something that most of the people come to Egypt, they have no idea about it. Hi guys, I am Mohamed. Welcome to Egypt in 5 minutes. Most of the people come to Egypt, they always think about the most important stuff we have in the country. They think about pyramids, they think about temples, and I think it makes perfect sense for them. This is because everybody heard about Egypt, he had to hear about pyramids as well. But in details, you can find the majesty of Egypt, you can feel how amazing the country is. And now I want to talk with you about numbers in ancient Egypt. Believe it or not, the Egyptian had to count so much stuff, especially when it comes to the offerings that they're gonna give to the god in his temple. And that's why they were able to count from number 1, believe it or not, up to 1 million. And you cannot see that all in one shot except on one of the walls in one of the temples called the Temple of Edfu. And the Temple of Edfu is a very famous temple, was built in Upper Egypt almost 2,000 years ago by the Greeks and the Romans. And the temple is still in very good condition that you can see most of the inscriptions on the walls so clear until today. And that is why the numbers of the offerings that they were counting that they will give to the god were so clear only on this wall. So come with me to see that. They're counting the jars that you will give to the god. And number 1 in ancient Egypt was just a straw, and you can see it here. And then the next number is 10. And the 10 was like a hoop, like a horseshoe, and you can see it here too. And then 100 is like a curly robe, and you can see it here. And then next to the robe, there is a lotus flower, which is number 1000. And then number 10,000, believe it or not, was a finger, and you can see it also right here. And then after 10,000, here it comes a bigger number, which is 100,000. And the 100,000 is a frog. And this is because maybe they have seen lots of frogs next to them in the canals and in the water, and they hear them a lot. And maybe one of the biggest numbers they got is the biggest number, or the number of the frogs itself, and that's why it became 100,000. And then the most interesting number for me, and I think for them as well, when they count a big number of something, or maybe when they were not able to count something, they called it 1 million, which is a guy open his arm up and he's so happy, million, and he's over there. So now they're counting the jars on this wall, and they say, we will give to the god 3,331 jar. The whole numbers that the ancient Egyptian knew it, all in one shot, on one of the walls, only in Edfu temple. This is Mohammed again. This time we're gonna talk about something very special in the Egyptian temples. And I think it was very special in Egypt in general. This is because it has something to do with the river Nile. How the ancient Egyptians measured the height of the Nile when the Nile used to flood. We go. When you study the history of Egypt, you will notice that most of the history of Egypt is very much made like a circle around the Nile. The Nile was very much the most important thing that the ancient Egyptian ever had. When they built temples, one of the jobs of the pharaoh is to keep the temple rich. And that's why they had to measure the height of the Nile every year. Now why is that? This is in that little story I'm going to tell you. One of the jobs of the pharaohs is to give a big piece of land for the temple. And this is because he wanted to keep the temple very rich. And this is because also, whatever the farmers will produce from this land, a big share from what they produce every year should go to the temple. And in ancient Egypt, there was no money to pay the people work in the temple. So in general, all the food comes to the temple. All the vegetables and the fruit come to the temple is the way they pay everybody work in the temple. Is the way to pay everybody painted anything in the temple. Is the way to pay even the priests of the temple. And that is why it was very important to measure the height of the Nile. And that is why also we found in the whole temples of Egypt what we call a Nilometer, a way to measure the height of the Nile after the flood. And this is because, believe it or not, the ancient Egyptian taxes were not imposed on the farmers on how much they produce, but on how much they should produce. And that is the funny thing about it. If you are new to my channel, please like this video and don't forget to subscribe so you can see everything new in the next time. And that's why whenever we measure the height of the Nile some year, and we know that the Nile height of the flood is that high, we expect that much from the farmers. And if it is a little bit higher, we expect more from the farmers. So if you are the farmer and you work in the land that it belongs to the temple, if you are very active and you work very hard, you're gonna keep a lot of vegetables for yourself, and then you give the shares to the temple. But if you're lazy and you don't work hard, you will be in debt for the temple, and that means the next year you have to give it back one more time. And that explains why in the Temple of Kom Ombo, which we are in now, and that is almost 2,000 years old temple, and in the Temple of Edfu, in the Temple of Karnak, in so many temples in Egypt, the Egyptian built something like this little structure behind me. And the rest of the building is over there. This is the Nilometer. From inside, we made a tunnel. And that tunnel goes under the ground all the way to the Nile, which is not very far from here. And we always write numbers and we put some marks, so when the Nile floods, the water will get in the tunnel all the way to the upper part of the Nilometer, and that's how they measure the Nile every year. So measuring the Nile, measuring the height of it, when the Nile floods every year was one of the most important things just to happen in Egypt and in the temples everywhere in the country. And that's why we found what we call the Nilometer, and that is why the Egyptian had to measure the Nile of the height every year, because again, taxes in ancient Egypt was not about how much you produce, but it's about how much you should produce. In Egypt, lots of wonders. Still, the greatest wonder was built by the ancient Egyptians, the Great Pyramid on Giza Plateau. Even if we have more than 120 pyramids, the Great Pyramid on Giza Plateau is still the most interesting building ever built by the hands of the ancient Egyptians. That is why in the next few minutes we will live with few facts about the Great Pyramid. Some of them I believe you never heard of it before. 10 facts about the Great Pyramid on Giza Plateau. We go! Welcome to Giza Plateau. In Egypt, we have got more than 124 pyramids. The Great Pyramid behind me on Giza Plateau is the greatest pyramid ever built by the hands of human beings. That is why everybody should know a lot of facts about this pyramid. Number 1, it is the largest pyramid ever built on the planet. Fact number 2, the pyramid was built by a pharaoh called Khufu. And Khufu ruled Egypt about 2600 BC. So the Great Pyramid is about 4,600 years old. Fact number 3, the Great Pyramid is the only pyramid we have in all of Egypt, and the only pyramid on the planet. It does count as one of the ancient 7 wonders of the world. And it is the only wonder still exists, however it's almost 4,600 years old. Number 4, the whole pyramid was built out of limestone, and I think if you look carefully at the pyramid, from the color of the stone you can tell it's limestone. But from inside, it's all granite. And granite was found in ancient Egypt only in a city called Aswan, which is almost 600 miles away. So the Egyptian got the limestone from local quarries on Giza Plateau, while they had to travel all the way to Aswan city, far in the south, in order to bring the granite and continue the building and put the granite inside the pyramid. Fact number 5, the Great Pyramid, like any other big building, had to have foundation beneath it because it's a lot of stone on the top of it, as you can see. That is why when the ancient Egyptians decided to build it, underneath it, they dug down for almost 28 feet depth. And then they put the blocks, and then they built the pyramid on the top of all of that. Fact number 6, the base of the pyramid is huge. It covers 13.5 acres. That is why it is a big building, as you can see. It's even bigger than you can think and you can imagine. And that is why looking at the Great Pyramid in photos and in videos doesn't help. You have to come to Egypt to see how amazing and big the pyramid is. Fact number 7, the pyramid was built by King Khufu, who was actually the son of another famous pharaoh called Senefro. And Senefro built another 2 huge pyramids for himself in another place called Dashur. and then the son of Khufu built another pyramid. The grandson built another pyramid. So this fact is, this family built the greatest pyramid ever built in all of Egypt. Fact number 8. The Great Pyramid has 2 entrances. This is because the original one is being closed for a long time, and then a little bit beneath it, we have another entrance. It was opened by the thieves, and it was reopened one more time by a king called Al-Ma'mun. That is why, until today, lots of people like to call the second entrance that we used to get in the pyramid the entrance of Al-Ma'mun. Number 9. The whole Great Pyramid behind me is kind of naked now. That means it was covered by another stone that you cannot see. All pyramids of Egypt, including the Great Pyramid, were covered by casing stones. The pyramid actually was so smooth because the casing stones were polished. And because we lost it, it will be nice if you look at the second pyramid top. Because if you look carefully on the top of the second pyramid, you can see the casing stones still exist on the top of it. And that means all the pyramids of Egypt were covered by casing stones. Very much the Great Pyramid was the same thing. Now the last thing I like to say, the Great Pyramid is the highest pyramid. Is the highest pyramid we ever found in Egypt. So the last fact I like to say, the pyramid was almost 450 feet high, or a little bit more. And that made it one of the greatest miracles ever built by the hands of human beings until today. If you enjoyed the video, please check out the other videos. You will love it.